Hello, my name's Gavin and this is Genre Books, and I am recording this on Tag Tuesday, and I am largely improvising this as this is the off the top of your head tag. I was kindly tagged by Book Chat with Pat, and although I've written the questions down to avoid lens glare from computer screens, I have not written my answers. Question 1. What was your favourite picture book as a child? I think my favourites were two books called Webfoot and Wormball. I cannot recall who the author was. I will find out. So this is post Mr. Men, but before anything where I was probably doing any independent reading. I've got no great thoughts about the books other than I just remember them as being colourful, entertaining, which is exactly what you want from a picture book. Question 2. What series did you love as a child? I think the Asterix and the Tintin books in equal measure were probably my favourite go-to when I first started visiting the library and choosing books by myself. They look like they're comic books, they are comic books. Tintin in terms of narrative, story, adventure, Asterix, all those things, plus a phenomenal dose of humour, stuff that I returned to maybe a few years later, looked at again and got a lot more of the jokes and stuff that if I were to read them again, I would probably see an even more humour there that I completely missed as a child. Question 3. The worst book you have read or tried to read? I think two that come to mind. One, because I've read it very recently. Irving A. Greenfield's The Waters of Death was just a bad book. And E.E. Stock Smith's The Galaxy Primes, because it was just a big disappointment. Having read The Lensman or most of the Lensman series and enjoyed them, read another story of his, I think written quite late in his life, and it was just not very good. It seemed confused. It seemed like, and I think was, the work of an old man trying to pursue a new hip young audience, not pulling it off at all. Question 4. Your favourite reading or book memory? I think for favourite reading memories, there are a couple of occasions where I have just come across a book, absolutely devoured that book in a sitting, and had it completely take me away. One time, so I should imagine I was, I think 14 years old. I was about to go on a transatlantic flight. We're at the airport, pick a book from the rack, and I picked Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. It was my first ever Terry Pratchett book. It was my first ever Neil Gaiman book. To have it both at the same time, I think I had finished the novel by the time we landed, and was a fan of both writers since that point. Whilst I was at university, the first Jeff Dyer book I ever read was one that I went through in a single sitting, and that was The Search. Very much like Jeff Dyer's fiction and non-fiction, and whilst possibly The Search isn't his best book, for me that's either out of sheer rage or yoga for people who can't be bothered to do it. But the search, I think I have the fondest memories of, the experience of reading. And for book memories, as distinct from a reading memory, I would say possibly the first visit to Hay-on-Wye in Wales. Just being confronted with that wall of bookshops, that absolute sort of abundance that there was the first time I visited, and the first few times that I visited the British Library, having selected some fairly rare or obscure books, had them fetched for me and got to sit down and read them in a space where there are hundreds of people doing the same thing as you. Question number 5. A book you loved as a movie. I would plump for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. I read the book for my A-levels, and I think by that point I had already seen the film. But in my mind now, I can't really separate the two. I think they're both really strong pieces of work. The film is just a beautiful piece and great portrayals from your lead actors in Jack Nicholson and Louise Fletcher, and the supporting actors, Brad Dourif, Danny DeVito, and I can't remember the guy who played Chief Bromden's name, but maybe post that there. So yes, that would be the novel, I think. The book where the movie is as good as the novel, but that's not a slight on the novel whatsoever. Just the movie is so good. Question 6. A book you wish they would make into a movie. I think, if I'm getting percentage points on this, I'm going to say Consider Phlebas by Ian M. Banks, and let's see if we can get a culture series of movies made. The only reason they've not been made is that they must be unfilmable. The idea of the culture is so alien. How would you portray those conversations between the ships, which must happen in microseconds yet fill pages? There have been plenty of science fiction films, but none, I think, that portray the immensity of the universe that I think the culture novels demonstrate. Maybe Dune comes close, and I'm thinking in terms of the David Lynch film with the folding of space. I think that is close in the simplicity with how it is portrayed, but blipping from one point in the universe to another is rather a cheap little shortcut in a way, where the culture is just a slow grinding expansion. I don't think you could do justice to it in anything less than a 10 movie cycle, fully funded ahead of time and planned out. But if I'm limited to just one film and I'm not getting percentage points, let's film something by this film Foucault's Pendulum by Umberto Eco. Let's do something with the stories in Fictions by Jorge Luis Borges. Let's reinvent Last Year at Marienbad. Question number 7. A book character you would like as a friend. That's got to be the most difficult question on this list, surely. I've got plenty of ideas, and then those fall apart straight away. Okay, off the top of my head, it's just maybe look at the bookshelves. No, it's not look at the bookshelves. How about Retief from Keith Laumer's Retief stories? He is always on the lookout for a good time. He seems to be someone who's quite loyal and will have your back. And he's got a wicked sense of humour. Question number 8. A place you want to visit because of a book you've read. I'm going to slightly cheat on this one because it's a place I've already been, in that it's Paris. But I would like, please, to go to 1920s Paris. I would like to spend some time with all those American expat writers, all those English artists. I think that would be a fantastic time, and that's from my reading around the Dada and the Surrealists, through the early novels of Hemingway. That just seems like a fun place to be. Question number 9. A non-fiction book you would recommend. I did, with a little bit of forethought, pull this off the shelves. I would recommend The Blood and Thunder Guide to Pulp Fiction. I know I've mentioned this before, but this is just a fantastic book. Maybe a little bit more referencey than non-fiction for people's taste. So as an alternative, I would recommend a book by Roger Crowley. It's about Venice, and it is called, bear with me, City of Fortune. And it is about the history of Venice, how they gained an empire and how they lost that empire. It's absolutely fascinating, full of characters. I still have that image of the Doge, I think Stephen Dandolo his name was, blind, aged, realising that a siege is going awry, everyone afraid to attack, grabs a sword and says, "Follow me," and basically shames an entire armada into attacking, I think it was Constantinople. But there's a lot to like in that book. Must read some other histories of Venice to see how they compare, but that one, that sticks with me. And question 10. If you could hang out with an author all day, who would you pick and why? Who would I be benefiting from hanging out with this author? Is it to benefit me? In which case, I would like to hang out with There are plenty of authors whose works I love and admire, who I would run a mile from having to spend a day with. I can't imagine Kafka is a lot of fun. Jack Kerouac would probably get on my nerves. Hemingway too. I wouldn't have much to say to Homer, but could I use this opportunity to maybe meet Shakespeare for a day and show to him the impact he's had on literature? Could I meet H.P. Lovecraft for a day and basically harangue him from dawn till dusk about his attitudes and tell him his place in history would be far less problematic if he just bucked his ideas up? Could you convince Dan Brown never to pick up a pen. And I want to change one of my previous answers there. The worst book I've read is The Da Vinci Code. Still, maybe I shouldn't be meeting authors from history. I don't want to muddy or alter the timeline. So I'll end it there. But I have to tag some other people. I'm tagging Roy from Roy Reads Anything. I'm tagging Bartle's Bookshelf. And because I saw in a recent video that he was complaining he never gets invited to all the tag parties, I'm inviting Steve Donahue. I'll be back soon with a pick from the tote bag because I have finished The Robot Brains by Sidney J. Bounds, and I'll be giving some brief thoughts on a brief book, and also to talk about what I've been reading very recently. But until then, goodbye.